Hello everybody and welcome back to another EPI video. Today is November 4th, 2024, just one day away from the election, folks, and today I will be releasing my final 2024 Senate election prediction for all 34 Senate races. Without further ado, let's get right into it and fill out the states that are safe for both parties that they will likely win by more than 10 points. So for the Democrats, you'll get Maria Cantwell in Washington, Adam Schiff in California, Izzy Rano in Hawaii, as well as other states in the Northeast like Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont with Bernie Sanders who caucuses them, likely also Angus King in Maine. Um, also, Amy Klobuchar, just because Hoisey White is such a bad candidate that in a state where Harris will likely win by around the margin of 7, probably a little less, I would expect Klobuchar to definitely do enough better to the point where she wins by 10 over such a weak opponent. And then we'll add Maryland in here because Elsa Brooks is polling over 10, and, most of the undecideds will go to her. It's a deep blue state. She'll probably get that over 10 points. So those are the safe Democrat states. Let's do the safe Republican ones now. We'll likely win with John Curtis in Utah. John Barrasso in Wyoming, also North Dakota. Nebraska's, I guess we'll say they're regular as they're safe. Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, Indiana, and a safe flip in West Virginia. That's the Republicans. If you're saying safe, that would be the Republicans' safe state. So with a floor of 47 for Republicans, 40 for Democrats. Now going into the likely states, Democrats have a few. So first of all, let's start with New Mexico. That's a state where Martin Heinrich is running for re-election. He's a Democrat. The daughter of Miss Demenci, she is running. And, it's a place where New Mexico is right trending and Republicans will likely do better with Latino voters. So I would expect it to be a little bit under 10. But at the same time, Heinrich is a good incumbent. He should win with a likely margin. Tim Kaine will also likely win by a likely margin. Again, I don't know if we have the polling for it here, and it doesn't look like we do, but here's the interesting thing about this race, and I guess we should probably bring up the polling just to bring it up, and to bring up Senate races because it's very important. And the polling, again, it shows Kaine is up 11, right? He's up 10 in Signal, 11 in Roanoke, in recent reports. I don't know the undecided voters will go, but I just don't see it as safe. I know Hung Kao isn't as great as a lot of people thought he was going to be, but I see it with Harris likely doing a few points worse. I see it more likely than not a slight bit under 10 as for a likely Democratic race. And then if I need to throw in another one for the Dems, I will. I did miss New York, which is safe blue. So I'll just throw that in there. But there are no others I need to throw in for Dems right now. Okay, Republicans' likely places. There's also a few for them. Of course, we have Nebraska's regular, or actually special race, which, this is a race. It's an interesting race. It's a race where I think, and, a lot of people thought this was going to be close when you had original polling that showed this. Let's pull up the Senate map here for the RCP Senate map. And as you can see with Nebraska, Deb Fischer is obviously facing a hard race because Dad Osborne's an independent. He's not a registered Democrat, and it gives him more appeal. But YouGov, a bit of a liberal pollster, shows her up 7. She'll likely, again, win more undecideds than not. And that, New York Times Siena showed her up 2. That was a bit earlier, though only in the end date. So I think, she'll likely win undecideds by a very big margin because they're just people that want to be into Osborne but will really vote for Trump and straight Republicans to the point where it's not safe, but she will get close to it being safe for the Republicans. So I should put it in likely, I guess. And then also what's likely, Florida is a likely place for the Republicans. As you can see, Rick Scott, he's a good incumbent. I mean, he won a tough race in 2018. And he's up 4.5. He's up only 3 in Liberal Morning Consult, 4 in Florida Atlantic, 4 in Credible Emerson. And so, he's up less. But, I mean, I again think he'll win the undecideds in a state where Trump's likely to win by more than what Scott's polling at. And he's a good incumbent. He had high turnout in the primary. He has a lot of fundraising. He should be able to win by more than 5. And I think he's not in any danger. Who's also not in any danger? Ted Cruz. Now, this is a race where a lot of people think Colin Allred has a very serious shot. And let's be honest, Colin Allred's polling kind of close, but 4 points isn't like that close. He's at 4 points in Signal, 3 points in Liberal Morning Consult, 4 in New York Times Siena, 4 in Conservative Rasmussen. And you see that there, and those are the more recent polls. So it's all around the same thing. I think they're generally getting it right. I think Cruz will definitely do better than he did against Beto O'Rourke, though not necessarily as good as Donald Trump's going to be doing. I think it's still slightly likely just because there's a lot of people that are like, Cruz, I mean, they know him for a long time. But again, it's just slightly more likely that when they vote for Trump, who's polling better, it'll pull Cruz slightly ahead of the 5-point margin. Also, I think Republicans flip the Senate as Montana is a likely Republican state. This is right. It's huge for the Republicans. Sheehy up 6.5, up 4 in Emerson, but up 8 in Remington Research and New York Times Siena. So, this is a race where Trump won the state by 16 points. Tester's had blue wave years and a great year in 2012, but this is his hardest race yet. Deep red state, he's down by 6.5 points in the polling. He had a lot of fundraising, but doesn't seem to be working out for him. He seems to be losing badly to Tim Sheehy. He's definitely going to do a lot better than Harris. Well, Biden has margin and Harris's margin this year. But also, it's just not enough, not even close, really, to save him to a race that keeps looking better for Tim Sheehy. So, unfortunate there for the Democrats because Republicans will flip the Senate just with their likely states. Now we're going to get on to the more 6 competitive states. I'll start with lean states. So I think lean Democrat is Arizona. That's the first one that comes to mind. Problem for Republicans in Arizona is that Kari Lake is a terrible candidate, like truly bad. I know you have Atlas Intel, the most accurate pollster that shows her up 1, but I don't put much credibility into that. Insider advantage, she's up 2, or Gallego's up 2. New York Times Siena, he's up 5. Rasmussen is up 4, which is impressive for him there. And Trafalgar is also up 4, so even more conservative pollsters. And while I think that there are still some more, again, Trump voters that will be voting for Kari Lake that don't say they will, and Trump and Lake ideologically are not too different. I think a lot of McCain Republicans, which is a very big demographic in Arizona that will decide the state, they're going to vote for Trump, but they hate the comments that Lake made about McCain voters in a previous gubernatorial run, and they just can't vote for it. They can't bring her to do it. They're going to vote for Gallego. How big is that will determine the difference in margin between Gallego and Lake, and I think it's a lean Democrat seat just because of the fact that she has really bled those voters and does not know how to run this campaign. She's a political novice, and it's not working out too well for her. Another lean Democratic seat, Nevada. This race I expected Republicans had more potential in earlier. Now they have a lot less potential, though. Sam Brown, she's down 4.5 points. And although he's up 1 in Susquehanna, he's tied in Atlas Intel. Those are better for him. And he's only down 2 in Noble Predictive Insights. He's down 6 in Emerson, a very good pollster, and 9 in New York Times Siena. And I don't think those numbers will materialize. I don't think so at all. But while Nevada is close presidentially, and I guess it's still kind of close, Rosin has clearly cemented herself. She won by 5 points in 18 as an incumbent that can connect to Nevadans that even Trump might win. And Sam Brown is having trouble. He's also a political novice. Casting himself as somebody that should be a new senator, he's having a lot of trouble. Rosin has a big fundraising apparatus. The polls point to her winning. I think it's also a lean Democratic seat. And now we get into the tilt states. These are the most competitive. So I'll start from most to least. And that means I'm going to start with Wisconsin, which is actually, I guess it's still slightly lean, but like barely. It's almost tilt. And, Wisconsin, again, close presidentially. But, it's also close to the polls here because she's up 1.8. And Hovde has went up 1 and Inside Advantage tied. In Trafalgar, Atlas Intel, he's only down 1. So, he's up. But then you have Emerson, a great pollster. He's down 6. New York Times Siena, he's down 4. And, that's not as good for him. We know Tammy Baldwin has rural appeal to Republican voters and will still vote for Donald Trump. We've seen it in her previous election results. She is a very good incumbent. She has a high fundraising apparatus, even though Hovde is rich. and he's been able to do a lot better than initially expected by a lot of people. It still seems as a very close borderline tilt, but lean race just because he's down in that. He doesn't have the connection. He could be branded as somebody who's out of touch for that reason, and that's why he doesn't have the same appeal that Trump has, and he's still down in a place like Wisconsin. I guess I'll also give Michigan as tilt at this point to the Democrats. You know, the only difference between the presidential race here and the Senate race here is that I think, Slotkin will get the voters that Harris won't get, that I guess you could say over the Israel-Hamas war. They're upset with Harris. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, again, not endorsing Harris, actually. And they'll do that, but they'll still vote Democrat because they do usually at the federal level. Should do better with that. And she'll also just do better generally because I think Kamala Harris is seen as farther left than Alyssa Slotkin, whom Michiganders know. So she's up almost 3, incredible polls like, I guess you could say Emerson, she's up 4. She's up 2 in New York Times, Siena, tied in Trafalgar and Inside Advantage, and up again 2 in local Mitchell Research, and also 2 in Atlas Intel. So very close, these recent polls. Even Rasmussen has her up 1, though they're conservative, or Rogers up 1. But the thing is, Rogers is a congressman. She was a former congresswoman. Again, she has a funding advantage. Michigan is definitely blue or slight bit of a lean at that level. It would make sense that she slightly outpaces Harris to become the next senator, placing Debbie Stabenow. And now, also, tilt Democrat is Pennsylvania. Very tight race that we have here. Much tighter than I initially expected David McCormick could make it. You have some tight polls in this race. So Pennsylvania, Casey's only up. If you look at the polls, he is only up by 2.4. And he's tied in Emerson, down 1 in Trafalgar, only up 2 in Atlas Intel, 1 in Design Advantage, and up 3 in Suffolk and Muhlenberg College. And so, although he's losing Trafalgar's poll, the thing is, Casey is, he's been around a long time. Since 2007, he's been a senator there. He's won 3 times. Every time he's had impressive margins. He outruns people. And while you have a lot of these polls that still show him outrunning by a couple, a lot show him barely outrunning him or not even outrunning Harris at all, this is definitely not a good sign for Bob Casey in terms of how close the race is getting. He still has an advantage because he's still going to outrun her by maybe a couple points, just because McCormick's branded as an out-of-touch businessman who only cares about the rich. He hasn't worked to deal with it the same way Trump has, where Trump doesn't really fit that brand the same way with Pennsylvanians. McCormick does. Casey is very popular, at least among the Pennsylvanians, it seems. And so, with his polling lead, with his, again, fundraising advantage, though McCormick is funded a little better than the other 2 Rust Belt Republican Senate candidates, I would expect narrowly Casey to pull it off. And the most narrow Senate race is Ohio. I'm going to give it to Bernie Moreno. Now, here's why. Here's why this is a flip into the Republican column. It's a very interesting race, but McCormick already off bat, Moreno, already off bat leads the polling average in Ohio. And I don't know if we can get this loading. Hopefully, here it comes. But he leads by, I think, 0.4, yeah. So he leads by, in a liberal poll, Morning Consult by 1, a credible Emerson by 3, although Trump was winning by 12, which is a little bit more than I think he would in Ohio, but still. And then he's down 1 in Trafalgar. Here's the thing. If he's leading the polls, and we've agreed he's much more likely because he has lower name recognition than Sherrod Brown, who's a very good incumbent. The fact that this is a race means he's a very good incumbent. His lower name recognition will likely lead to people voting for Trump also voting for Moreno, more so than not when you talk about them being undecided to the point where if he's already leading the aggregate, even though you could have some overestimating him, even if it's barely different from this aggregate, I would say he's very narrowly advantaged in this race. So my prediction, Republicans flip the Senate, net gain of 3 seats, 52 to 48, and that's good for them. I mean, that definitely is. They're losing a lot of swing state races, but they still will get 52 seats in the Senate. And if you want to hold me really accountable and see my exact predictions, well, here they are. This is my exact prediction. You can just read these for a couple seconds, And that way we will be able to see Fisher is plus 9.3, and we'll be able to see exactly on election night how accurate my predictions are. So now you know what my exact predictions are, which is a very good thing. So thank you so much for watching this video. Comment down below for other videos you suggested me to make. Please like, please subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications so you never miss another video. As always, thank you so much for watching. EPI out.